Hey, Pastor Bill here with another Ask Pastor Bill video for you. We've gotten a lot of questions lately from a number of people about the qualifications for eldership for pastoral ministry. And so we're going to do some videos walking through some of the qualifications that are listed in 1 Timothy 3 and in Titus 1 in particular, and look at some of those. Ultimately, these are important because the qualifications for eldership are not that spectacular. They kind of lay out what it looks like to be a Christian. One of those that feels a little bit out of place when you're reading the list. A lot of those make sense, but there's one that kind of stands out, at least to me, and it's hospitality. So we're going to spend some time today talking about what is hospitality and why is that so important. Why would that show up in the qualifications for a pastor, for an elder of a church? Why is that such an important part of spiritual maturity? I don't think most of us would go to that first. So biblically, hospitality is a really important concept. It's something that we see throughout Scripture. We can go back to even, and it was important in the ancient world, but we can go back all the way into Genesis and see Abraham's hospitality for strangers that came to him and how he handled it. When the angel of the Lord visited him, we see it all the way through Scripture. For Christians, though, in particular, hospitality is at the heart of the gospel. Because the gospel is that we were strangers, that we were alienated from God, that we were far off from Him. But through Christ, the way has been made for us to be brought in, to be welcomed into a family, that God has taken us in. And the imagery that's used of what it means to be at His family always comes back to table fellowship, to being together and sharing a meal that anticipates the ultimate feast in God's presence. And so, as Christians, then, if that's the gospel we believe, then it gets extended through us when we say, hey, you don't have to be a stranger or outsider to the people around us. Say, we want to welcome you into a family, into a community, as our guest, as our friend. And so, hospitality is a gospel matter because it takes us from being strangers to being friends. So, how do we practice hospitality? Well, we think about it as individuals, as Christians, and then as a church, how we practice hospitality and why it's so important. As individuals, there's four ways that come to mind for me immediately. The first one is invite people into your home. Wherever you live, the actual physical space you live in. I know that for some of you, you're like, I can't do that, it's DC. There's 6 of us that live in this house. That's okay. Invite them in. Or if you live in a studio basement apartment, that's okay. Make your home, the physical space you live in, a place that is open, that you invite people into. Because as you do that, it breaks down walls of division as you are welcoming people into a place that is intimate. And in doing so, you're opening your life up to people and practicing hospitality. And it doesn't take much. You don't need to put on a gourmet meal. You could serve popcorn. But having people into your home takes people from being strangers to being guests and hopefully toward being friends. Second, then, is like it. Invite people into your spiritual home. Not just the physical space you live in, but into the spiritual space that you occupy. And that means if you're involved in ministries in the city, if your community group is involved in actively engaging this city and doing good things for DC, invite people in to join you, to be a part of those things. Invite people into your community groups for a meal. That our community groups are intentionally set up to be open to the people in our lives who need Christ, to be able to come in and be able to say, hey, on whatever night or day we get together with some friends, we have a meal together, we read the Bible and pray for each other. Would you come and join me? That invitation is hospitality. Invite people to worship services and do so in a way that's not just, hey, do you want to come to church with me? Because people don't know what that means. But say, hey, on Sundays, I go to a church service, I get together with my church family, come with me, and then afterward I'll buy you a meal. Because hospitality takes some cost. But offer to people, bring them in, and then get together afterward. Go out to lunch or to dinner, depending on which service you go to. So invite people into your physical home, into your spiritual home, and also then, Christians should be eating together all the time. That's the image we have in Acts 2, that people were in each other's homes all the time, eating together, going to the temple courts together. Do you realize that in 7 days, most of us eat at least 21 meals a week? Some of you might be less. I usually eat a few more. But those 21 meals a week are great opportunities. They're gospel opportunities for you to sit at a table with someone and spend time with someone, chances to connect with someone in your church family or outside of it. So leverage those meal times for gospel and impact. And a fourth way that you as an individual can practice hospitality is host a community group. We are always looking for new places to be able to host community groups, different areas of the city that our church can break into with a gospel light and gospel witness. And so basement studios can work. Whatever space you've got, we can use. And so if you're willing to open your home to host a community group, that is a beautiful sign of and show of hospitality. We have a constant need to grow, and we're constantly looking for new hosts. So those are some individual ideas to invite people into your physical and spiritual homes, to leverage meal times with people, or even to be willing to host ministry gatherings. What about as a whole church? See, from the beginning, hospitality has been very important to us at Redemption Hill because we see it as an outworking of the gospel. There are gospel implications to it. And so we do everything we can to make our Sunday gatherings accessible to anybody that comes in. That's why we explain every aspect of our services every single week. That's why our greeters ministry is so important. Greeters, if you are serving as a greeter in Redemption Hill, you need to know that you're not just standing at the door as people come in. You are the first face to welcome people into our spiritual family home. Some of you could even serve weekly in that ministry. It's not a huge commitment to stand and welcome people, and some of you are gifted at it and love it. And so that's an important aspect of hospitality. Another way that we practice, or that we can practice hospitality as a church, is make yourself available to people in the church. The ways that people in Redemption Hill support each other and love each other are huge and beautiful. Post something on the bulletin board if you have a need, and follow the bulletin board on CCB. And if you have a skill set or resources or opportunities or things that you can provide for people, jump on the babysitting group and see if people need help with childcare. See if somebody needs help with a house project. If somebody has a child or is having a hard time physically, to be able to provide meals for them. We as a church family can come around each other and support each other some of those ways. Another thing to consider is missional initiatives. A missional initiative, at its very core, is looking for a way that you as a community group collectively can practice hospitality. How can you reach people in our city who are right now strangers to us as a church, strangers to God, not part of his family, and bring them in as guests, have bridges to reach people and bring them in as guests, and then hopefully they can become friends and family. And so missional initiatives, if you have ideas of how to connect with people outside of our church community in our city, bring those ideas to your community group leaders so that your whole community group can join you in that pursuit. And one other small thing that we do as a church that I think is worth highlighting is every single Sunday we say, after the pastoral prayer, we say, please take some time to say hello to the people around you. That's not just to take a breath before the sermon. That's not just to make the introverts in the room feel really awkward. That's actually a moment where you get to go and find people that are new to the community, who aren't part of our church, pursue them and make them feel welcome and cared for. It's a 2,000-year-old tradition in Christian churches of passing the peace. And so when we have that time, don't just stand up and see somebody that you know and go, hey, great to see you. Look around the room. See if there's anybody there that you don't know, and go and find them and let them know that you're glad that they're there. Maybe even invite them out to eat after the service and practice hospitality. So here's the thing in all of these, is that hospitality is costly. It's hard. It takes finances. It takes time. It takes vulnerability, and it takes openness. And so there is a real sacrifice of personal desires and personal goals in order to reach out to others. It's a hard and costly thing. We could at times, have people that just don't understand why we as a church will practice hospitality the way we do, and emphasize meals the way we do, and provide opportunities that way, the way that we do. And really, it's that we're looking at Jesus, and as individuals, we need to look to Jesus. Jesus lived his life as a homeless man who was poor, he had nothing, and he was still the ultimate host. His first miracle was to turn water into wine, to be able to provide an atmosphere that would be an atmosphere of celebration at a wedding. He fed 5,000 people and 4,000 people, and he presented himself as the Lord of the banquet who will host us for all of eternity. And so let's commit to hospitality together, to look for outsiders, to look for people who are different than us, to look for strangers that we can bring in as guests and friends. We can do this as a whole church because hospitality is a gospel outworking. We pursue together unapologetically, even though it's costly and hard. It's worth the resources. And it will only be effective if we as individuals, as Christians, as members of this body, join each other in practicing hospitality as well. And so that's why it lands in the elder qualification list. It is a mark of spiritual maturity to invest our time and resources and lives and vulnerability into a ministry of hospitality.